Like most people, I had a lot of feelings after Joel died in The Last of Us Part 2. But after the shock wore off, I kept coming back to how tragic it was that he was the only person who knew the truth about what happened in Salt Lake. It's hard to imagine the loss of a father figure, but there was also this major event they traveled cross country for that turned out way different from what either one of them was expecting, and a chance she would never know for sure what happened that day. Because of how it happened, there was no question she'd want to make the people responsible pay. But even if she were successful, it wouldn't necessarily answer the questions you'd imagine were eating her up inside. Her immunity, and all the effort and people they lost along the way, all seem to add up to nothing from Ellie's point of view. Like the show, the game withholds the conversation when she asks Joel about it directly, leaving you to wonder if she'll ever learn the truth and how she would feel if she did. The show sets things up by showing tension between them at the beginning of the second season. We don't know what this is about exactly, but we do know that before they arrived at St. Mary's, Joel gave Ellie a chance to back out. And she told him in no uncertain terms that she didn't want everything they did to get there to be for nothing. And then we also know the big one. At the very end of the season, after she told him about what happened with Riley, she asked him to swear everything he told her about the Fireflies was true, and he looked her in the face and lied. You can't blame him for trying to protect her. And even though we'll get into this later, you certainly can't blame him for wanting to save her life at the hospital. Still, Ellie is the one who's left behind to sort through it all as she grows up and grows into a life without him. The tension was there and it was palpable, but the show also hinted that something might have changed between the night of the dance when she blew up on him and the morning of the day he died when she was talking with Jesse. Then it skips some major scenes they shared at the beginning of the game, and then all the flashbacks of her thinking about him after he was gone. These did appear in the trailer, so I knew they would come eventually, and they decided to put them all together in episode 6 of the second season. I'm glad they decided to do it like this because it made for a hell of an episode, and I think it paints a more complete picture for people who have only seen the show. While the 6th episode is Joel and Ellie's, it starts with a new flashback to his childhood that isn't from the game. We see that Tommy is afraid of their father, an abusive cop played by Tony Dalton, who will always be Lalo Salamanca to me. Teenage Joel steps up, trying to deflect the blame and protect his younger brother. His plan doesn't work because, as a cop, his dad has already talked to the other kid involved. And when Joel tells him that he's not going to let him hurt Tommy, Dad tells him a story about his own father. When he was 10, he stole a candy bar. His father found out and made him give it back and apologize to the cashier. Then when they got home, he hit him so hard that he broke his jaw, and his mouth had to be wired shut. Having everyone know what happened was embarrassing, and Joel wonders why he hits them if he knows what it's like. He does admit to having hit them and maybe going too far at times, but he says he never did anything like that. The point he's trying to make is that even though he comes up short, he's been doing better than his father, and he tells Joel, "When it's your turn, I hope you'll do better than me." Then on his way out, he puts his hand on his shoulder, and you see that the watch Joel always wears was his. That's always been a symbol of when time stopped for him after he lost Sarah, and now we know that it also served as a reminder to try to be a better father than his dad was. As we saw in episode 2, the show focuses on the cycle of violence as one of its major themes. Hurt people, or more specifically, Joel killed Abby's dad, so Abby kills Joel, and so Ellie wants to kill Abby. The cycle is a hard thing to break, and this shows that Joel's father was trying. I wouldn't say we know enough about him from these few minutes to say whether he succeeded, but he didn't hit Tommy that day. He seemed sincere, and even if he wasn't, at the very least he gave his son some good advice. It's complicated. That's the funny thing about parental relationships. When you're a kid, you don't see your parents that way. And of course, it goes both ways. And later, I think Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey do a terrific job of showing that from both perspectives. But this series of flashbacks fills in the blanks on where the tension between them in the premiere came from. They're essentially vignettes that all take place on Ellie's birthday. We watch as she grows up. She was 14 when they got to Jackson, and the first flashback is of her 15th birthday. Joel has secured some Legos, which he trades to Seth for a birthday cake. I guess you don't have to know how to spell to get through the police academy, but apparently he's your guy if you're looking for baked goods post-apocalypse. If you're looking for a guitar, then Joel is definitely your guy for that. And we see how much Carrie puts into her birthday gift, which includes engraving the moth we've seen on its neck that's based on drawings he saw in her room. 15 is also the year when Ellie burned her arm to hide her bite mark. When Tommy brings her home, she confesses she just wanted to wear short sleeves again while she's all looped up on painkillers. Later, we'll hear that repeated to Dina in Seattle, but for now, it's all daddy and daughter. After she tears into the cake with her hands, he surprises her with the guitar. In the first season when they got to the university, Joel mentioned that he wanted to be a singer when he was a kid, and Ellie tried to get him to sing then and there. They ended that with her saying he would have to sing for her later. She was gonna save the fucking world, it's the least he could do. She uses her birthday juice to make it happen, and he sings her the Pearl Jam song Future Days. This is the same song she started to play in the theater in Seattle in the last episode. Future Days was the title of the season 2 premiere, and this song also came out in 2013, which is kind of funny since the show changed the day of the outbreak from that year back to 2003. This was an essential scene in the game. It was the first one they shared, so the first time you saw them together in Jackson. The show made slight changes to most of this, but they wanted to keep the song even though it wouldn't exist in this timeline because the words fit so well with their relationship. In the game, you get the sense that he just found the guitar and cleaned it up. The moth just happened to be on it, and he's the one who asks if she wants to hear a song before he gives it to her. While the guitar is cool, her 16th birthday is when he goes all Father of the Year. This is one of the most memorable cutscenes in the game because it's the first time Joel reappears after his death, and this is just a sick birthday present, and it's a bunch of stuff that hits you in the feelings that you weren't expecting to see. The way the museum is hidden, and she has no idea what they're doing until she sees the dinosaur, and just the thought of being able to roam around inside a place like that after it's abandoned. Because of how the show laid these out, the transition from teen to young adult is emphasized. Ellie's at that time when you can still be both. Climb on top of the dinosaur and talk about the birds and bees. It's the end of being a kid whenever it suits you, and Ellie makes the most of it here. To his credit, Joel makes it easy. It's another example of him being very thoughtful, and I guess that's best summed up with the tape of liftoff and the whole space capsule experience. Joel learned Ellie wanted to be an astronaut in the same season 1 episode that she learned he wanted to be a singer. She explained that it was probably because she grew up in the QZ where you're all penned in, and there's nowhere else to look but up. She told him she had read every book about astronauts she could get from the school library. And we heard her tell Dina the story of the Apollo 1 fire when they first were walking around Seattle. The gift blows Ellie away, and Joel feels validated for his effort. Even though it's otherwise perfect, she gets thrown off when she sees some fireflies near the trail on their way out. It's a sign that she hasn't stopped thinking about what happened in Salt Lake over the years. He thinks he notices something, but when he asks, she just brushes it off. What Joe got right about the trip to space is that it transcends life and the hellscape the world has become. The scene sticks with you because it's two people connecting in a way that doesn't seem otherwise possible in their world. And it's a stark contrast to everything they experienced in the first season. It's pure. It's the love that exists between parents and kids finding a way. The Fireflies scene shows that they can't stay in that place. Ellie won't stay a kid. Joel can't always be there, and she won't always want him to protect her. And that's what we see on her 17th birthday. Joel comes home early to surprise Ellie with a birthday cake. He finds her in a room with Kat, smoking pot, getting a tattoo, and fooling around. As he says, it's all the teenage shit at once, and it's natural in that way. This is the scene I was alluding to earlier when I mentioned the performances. Joel looks so pissed that the daughter who he shared these great birthdays with isn't there anymore. Ellie looks crushed that he doesn't understand what's changed. It's the thing that happens between parents and teenagers everywhere, every day. Time goes on and people change, but their situation is different. I mentioned this in some of my trailer videos, but one detail I always liked about the game was how it used her scar from getting bitten to mark time. There's the obvious reference to how some things leave a mark and how we try to exert some control over how that affects us. At 15, she tried to burn herself to hide what made her feel different, so she could be like everyone else and wear short sleeves when it's hot outside. That was enough for a while, but at 17, she's trying to make it her own while she's individuating from Joel. While she doesn't get much to do, I really like Kat trying to mediate in this scene before realizing she'd better just beat it. It underlines the idea that the real problem festering outside of the normal family stuff can only be sorted out between them. The incident leads to Joel agreeing to let Ellie move into the garage after they fix it up a bit so she can have a space of her own. It's a nice gesture after thinking things through, and probably a way to make up for the fact that he made her feel like shit about being into girls. The premiere left me wondering if she found out about the truth about Salt Lake and that's why she moved out, but it turns out to be this fight instead. This also adds some context to why he was so quick to shove Seth at the dance when he started tossing around the slurs. The incident also leads Joel to Gale, looking for answers about the meaning of the moth imagery. When they were making up, he asked Ellie what they meant, and she said it's from something that she read in a book on dreams, but she doesn't elaborate. He leans towards the hopeful interpretation that it's about transformation, growth, change, but Gale tells him he's mixing them up with butterflies. Moths symbolize death. This is open to interpretation, but after she takes down her Savage Starlight poster and packs up her records, which have the pan flute artist Zafir on top, so I'm not sure what that's about, except your taste would get weirdly eclectic if you had to scavenge all your music. But the camera lingers on the drawings on her desk, and we see the words "you have a greater purpose" surrounded by moths. This is a callback to what Marlene told her before she hired Joel and Tess to transport Ellie to Salt Lake. And I take this as a nod to what Ellie says later, that in death, her life would have had meaning. That interpretation creates a problem for Joel because he took that away from her while ending any chances to make it right when he killed Abby's father. It's the conundrum of wanting to protect at any cost, which is a natural thing for a parent, especially someone like Joel who has already lost one child, and that sets up the final flashback to her 19th birthday where we see that happen again. This year, Joel decides to try to treat his precious cargo as an adult and give her what she wants. He's gonna take her on her first patrol. It's another thoughtful gesture, but before he tells her about it, we learn that she's reached the point that she's ready to confront him about what really happened at St. Mary's. That she has notes prepared is a sign of how much she's been thinking about it, and the absurdity of the cover story is unmistakable as she practices her questions out loud. She never gets a chance to ask them because the softball, easiest patrol there is mission takes a turn when they get a call on the radio that Eugene and his patrol ran into trouble. This has been hinted at since the beginning of the season when Gale brought it up in his therapy session. And Ellie's reaction to Jesse bringing up his death after she learned he was a Firefly made it seem like this could be the key to understanding what was going on between her and Joel. In the end, his history with the Fireflies was inconsequential. He got bit on patrol. He makes a very sympathetic case to have them give him a chance to say goodbye to his wife, and Ellie wants to make it happen. Joel does what he does. He prioritizes protecting her, sending her to get the horses so they can do the thing. Something doesn't feel right, so she stops before she leaves, and he looks at her and says, "I promise," so that she'll leave and he can dispatch Eugene to make sure she's safe. You could argue it's a bit of overkill since she's immune, but you can't argue with his consistency. And as I said before, you can't blame him for wanting to protect her. When she returns and finds out he lied, she knows for sure that he was lying about Salt Lake. She probably already knew. Maybe she just didn't want to believe it, but now she can't carry on like she had been. It all comes out when he serves up a cover story for Gale and Ellie blurts out the truth. It's pretty unfortunate timing for Gale, who essentially gets caught in the crossfire. If Ellie keeps the secret, there's literally no way she'd ever know what really happened. The hurt she experiences isn't intentional. This is about Joel and Ellie, and when she says he swore, She's obviously talking about his promise at the end of last season. Joel is left alone to let that set in, and after we relive some of the night of the dance, we get the missing piece of the puzzle. The show did a little fake out when it showed Ellie walk past him on the porch because a little while later, she returns so they can finally get everything out in the open. In a scene that doesn't happen in the game until the very end, it's actually the second to last thing you see in that. She finally gets to confront him about Salt Lake City. He doesn't lie when pressed this time and doesn't even try to pull any punches when she asks if they could have made a cure. He tries to justify it by saying it would have killed her, and she responds with justifiable anger, saying that's what was supposed to happen then. He took away the chance of her life having meaning. And it's not just about her either, he took it away from everyone. He took away the only purpose that she can imagine for her immunity, and she's left with the survivor's guilt and the weight of his decision every time she sees someone get infected. Even knowing how it turned out, he says he'd do it again if he were given another chance. When she calls him out for being selfish, he says it's because he loves her in a way she can't understand. Then the show connects it back up with the flashback scene of his father at the beginning. If she ever has kids of her own, he hopes she'll do a little better than he did. The performances here are on a different level, and they're all elevated by the writing choice to introduce Joel's memory of that day with his dad. If you think about it, when Joel looks at Tony Dalton, he doesn't see the grown man he and his brother are so afraid of. He's seeing the 10-year-old whose mouth has been wired shut. Also, it's a great choice to have all these memories play out one after the other in one episode, so the look on her face while she watches him play the guitar, and the way she looks inside the Apollo 5 capsule at the museum is fresh in our minds. I played the game in a few days, so it achieved the same thing. I'm not sure that would work if they asked viewers to wait 3 years or however long it'll be before we reach the series finale. This episode fills in the blanks to what was missing in the years between seasons, and gives us the relationship's highest highs and lowest lows. Bella Ramsey does an incredible job of getting angry about his answer, which she mostly already knew was coming, but also showing how she starts to move towards forgiving him. Pedro Pascal sells the idea that when the story presented him with an impossible choice, what to do next wasn't really a question. He chose love. Saying he hopes she'll do a little better than he did introduces the possibility of something good coming out of it. It's a relief to know they got everything out in the open in what will turn out to be the last conversation they'll ever have. And her saying she doesn't know if she'll ever be able to forgive him but would like to try is honest. I like that the show subtly puts the debate about why Joel did what he did to bed. When she asks if they could make a cure, he nods his head yes without any qualifications on whether it would work or not. Some fans scramble to justify his decision there, but according to their last conversation, nothing else was going through his head. He just loved her and couldn't fathom losing her. And to me, that's always been the more powerful story. Waiting to bring Joel back made us miss him. Seeing him as a teenager and then on his last night shows how he changed. And when it cuts back to the scene of her returning to the theater in Seattle, it makes us wonder how Ellie changed. At the end of the last episode, she was worlds away from where she was when he gave her the guitar for her 15th birthday. At the end of my last video, I didn't dwell on her mental space that much because I thought this episode might recontextualize things. Nora told her the same things that Joel told her in this episode. All of what we see here was in her head when she decided to torture a defenseless Nora in hopes of finding Abby. While I miss seeing Joel, I also want to see how his death shapes her future, and I think that's a great place to leave things. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.